women have been posting pictures in colorful traditional dress codes on social media to dispel misinformation about Afghan culture with the hashtag Don't Touch My Clothes. Now, two of these women join us on the broadcast today. Sofia Moruat, women and child rights activist. She's of Afghan origin but has been living in Norway since she was 7 years old. So she joins us live. We also have Ilaha Walizadeh. She's a British Afghan. She teaches women about violence against women and gender issues. She's also a researcher. She's also originally Afghan but currently living in London in the UK. So thank you both very much for being with us. It is a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. I want to begin by asking you, Sofia, about this very interesting trend, don't touch my clothes. What made you participate in this trend?
Well, when I first saw the hashtag on Twitter, it reminded me of my rich culture. Niqab and burqa has never been a part of Afghan culture. I have my mom and my grandma and my aunts who never ever covered themselves in that manner. So for me, being a daughter of both of my parents being politically active in Afghanistan and fleeing Taliban, the same terrorists who are now trying to dictate us once again, it was an easy task for me to do, to jump on the trend and make sure that I'm a part of this protest.
Ilaha, what about you? What did you make of this trend?
Hi, thanks for having me, and apologies, I'm on my phone, so if the picture is not very clear, it's because I've been on the road.
We can hear you and see you very clearly. Go ahead.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thanks for clarifying that. So for me, it's not a trend. It started off as a campaign against the Taliban enforcement of the burqa on Afghan women. So I would call it more than a trend. And the reason why I wanted to join was because growing up as an Afghan woman in a predominantly white setting, I grew up not liking or connecting so much with my own culture, but over the years I have reclaimed that. So for me, it was really important for me to show the world what our culture really was. It wasn't just an act of defiance against the Taliban, but it also for me was an act of defiance against white supremacy. In a world where our culture clothing is sold and packaged as bohemian and boohoo, and our culture is appropriated across the world, it was really important to show people what Afghan culture was really like. So for me, it was a campaign that I needed to showcase to the world what Afghan culture was all about. But I also want to highlight that it's really important that this campaign or this protest doesn't overshadow the protests in the country. So a lot of our women are out on the streets. They're protesting against the Taliban regime on the street. So whilst this campaign is important, it started off as a brilliant campaign. I think it's important that the mainstream media also focus on those women who are out on the street and protesting physically.
Right. And, I know that the both of you are not in Afghanistan. You're both of Afghan origin, but, you're living elsewhere in the world. Sofia, tell us a little bit about you. You said that, you fled Afghanistan back in 2003. How do you look at what's happening, today? And this trend or this campaign, Don't Touch My Clothes, actually started as a response to women students in Afghanistan being asked to be covered head to toe. So this campaign was actually a response to that. How do you see what's happening in Afghanistan today?
Well, what I see is at least for the past 20 years, Afghan women has been fighting for their rights, for their right to education, to be a part of society. So for me to look back and see that the Taliban are basically taking their right to education as well, because I was actually just recently, before this interview, I read that the Taliban are now talking about only allowing girls up to the grade of 6 to get an education and not above that.
Right.
Afghan women past 20 years have been fighting for way more than for the Taliban to just be taking all these rights away from them over a couple of days or a couple of months.
Yes.
And for them to be covered head to toe, like I said earlier, it is not a part of our culture. It has never been a part of our culture, and it's not a part of our society.
Right. Ila, I'll give you the last word. What do you hope to achieve with this campaign? I know that, you know, women have been talking about how they want to dispel the misinformation about Afghan culture, but there is also, you know, like you pointed out, campaigns like that can derail the message or damage the campaign in a certain sense.
I think my key message to everyone would be to focus on both sides. Whilst this campaign is really important, a lot of amazing women across the world are sharing colorful clothing, talking about our vibrant culture, but it's also very, very important to remind people that the purpose of this campaign was for women to have a choice, to dress how they want to. But obviously, currently in the current sphere in Afghanistan,
yes,
women don't have a choice, and that's what we are campaigning for. But it's also important to remember that Afghan women are not a monolith. What you've seen on Twitter over the past few days, this is what our traditional clothing look like. This is how we dress on Eid and weddings. This is not how women dress on a day-to-day basis. So that's also an important reminder for people to focus on that. And I would really, really love for mainstream media to sort of focus on women who are out on the street, women who are fighting for the real choice, for the real choices. And Afghan women, some Afghan women wear the hijab.
Yes.
Some Afghan women do not wear the hijab.
Yes.
Not all Afghan women look the same.
As long as it's about the choice. And I think don't touch my
Absolutely.
clothes. Yes, and I think don't touch my clothes, therefore, has to be about whichever clothing they want to wear. I think it's a very powerful campaign, and I thank you both very much for joining us on the social network to talk about the power of a campaign like this. Thank you very much once again for being with us.